people's posting pictures everywhere of Megan. You know, saying rest in peace.
He come over here and said they found a body in a bag over there in the house.
Oh my God, it was awful.
News at 6 starts now.
Lumberton police have just identified the body of a woman.
There's somebody here killing people.
2 bodies found near each other on the same street.
Their families don't know who killed them, don't know what happened.
Lumberton police are still looking for answers tonight.
All them girls, Abby Twister, Megan, Christina, and Rhonda, are all connected.
Neighbors say detectives pulled the second body from a trash bin.
I mean, I don't comprehend stuff like this too good. I don't understand how somebody could do somebody's child, mother, niece like that.
They see Megan talking. Oh, you best believe the killer was watching that. They seen that.
Ever since this mess happened, like everywhere I go, everybody I see, everybody's suspect. I wonder if you had something to do with it.
The third woman who police have discovered dead in the same neighborhood.
It drives me crazy that they won't say that they have been murdered.
What do you think the holdup is?
If you don't have big pockets around here, it's hard to get anything done.
I'm Russ Bowen, and this is 32 Degrees.
We was able to go outside in the yards. We didn't have to have parents watching, like sitting in the living room watching or on the porch watching their children play, because it was actually safe around here. You know, we was able to walk up and down the roads and ride your bicycles and actually have a life, you know, something my child don't have.
Her child doesn't have it anymore because something changed. It's sinister, it's dangerous, it's exhausting and frustrating, and downright terrifying.
We have 153 victims with no answers. Their families don't know who killed them, don't know what happened.
Robeson County, North Carolina has always been Mandy Revel's home. She's watched it go from a place she loved growing up to a county with more homicides per capita than any other in the state. And that doesn't include the bodies that have turned up that most folks think are murders but haven't been called that. So now she's marching and fighting for someone to just listen.
I realized that there was a lot of people just getting killed and there was nothing being done about it. And so when Megan got killed, I was almost sure that they wouldn't find out who killed her. I was almost sure that they would just put it up under the rug.
The woman she just mentioned, Megan Oxendine, was her best friend. Megan and another guy found a woman naked and dead inside a TV cabinet. And while the cops were at that scene, they found a second woman in a trash can nearby, naked, upside down, and dead. So Megan talked about it on TV news. Then she ended up dead too.
Be careful if you walk over there. There's a bunch of fire ants right around where she was found.
My producer Carrie and I walked around the neighborhood where it all happened in Lumberton. We walked around a bit, getting our bearings straight, taking some pictures, and not without attention either. The neighborhood's known for drugs and prostitution. There's a railroad track that comes right down the middle of the neighborhood, but there's no right side and wrong side of this one. It looks and feels mostly wrong. A couple of dudes in different SUVs cased us, each one taking turns, probably trying to figure out what we were up to. Some folks around here have been aggressive and threatening toward reporters in the past, so we just kept our guard up. But we did find a nice older guy named Kenneth Thompson.
Hey man, how you doing? Where's Peachtree Street? Oh, this is Peachtree?
We found Kenneth working on his car in his driveway. He tells us his friends, people he knows, relatives, they come by, some of them just hungry, some of them high or on their way to get high. His wife feeds them, and sometimes they sleep on the porch.
Do you mind telling me a little bit about that day? Do you recall it at all when they found the first body?
Well, before they found the body, you can smell the smell. It smelled terrible. I thought it could be my trash can, but it didn't.
He's talking about April 18th, 2017, when Kenneth just thought he smelled rotten trash. It was wafting into his yard from over around Peachtree Street and East 5th. It was hot and humid in the mid-80s. He didn't know it at the time, but Kristen Bennett was decomposing inside a television cabinet nearby. Kristen was found by a guy named Johnny Ray Barnes and one of the women I mentioned earlier, Megan Oxendine. Do you recall how long it was once they found the first body till they found the second body?
Same day.
Same day?
Mm-hmm.
Were you home when all that was going on?
Mm-hmm.
What was that like for you? I mean, what were you thinking?
Well, I would think they probably didn't smoke crack and stuff and probably killed themselves. Then again, how they put themselves in the bag and stuff like that. There's somebody here killing people. I wasn't scared, but my wife's scared to death.
Just a short time later that same day, Rhonda Jones was also found upside down, naked, in a nearby trash can. Had you ever known those women or seen them around here before? You did, so you knew.
They stopped by my house. My wife gave them food to eat. I give them a couple of dollars because what they do is their business. I'm not no better than they are. They better than I am. They're human beings just like I am.
He says they're human beings just like the rest of us. Their history shouldn't matter. I came to learn fairly quickly that's how these women's families and friends felt too, but they don't think a lot of other people do.
The crowd started smelling something in the trash can, and that was my Rhonda.
That's Sheila Price, Rhonda Jones' mother. After we'd left a handwritten note on the door of her trailer, she called me back just a few hours later. Rhonda was the second woman found, the one in the trash can.
A friend called me and said 2 girls were found behind PJ's store. And I was in Virginia when it happened. And my daughter went to see, and she had a distinct tattoo, so she knew that was Rhonda. And me drove back by myself for 7.5 hours.
That must have been torture in that car all alone, with nobody.
I had to cry a while and I pray a while.
Sheila wasn't having the best day. She's got some health problems. You can only imagine all the stress. That odd sound in the background, by the way, is actually her pet bird. You'll hear it a lot. Have you been given any sense, or do you have any sense as to why someone would ever... There's somebody coming at the door right now.
That's my daughter.
How you doing?
Help me talk to him.
I'm cutting out what comes next. Sheila's other daughter, Sherlyn, Rhonda's sister, walked in, and she was not happy we were there. She was irritated after a story on a local news station aired the night before. It was about a 13-year-old girl named Hanya Aguilar who had recently gone missing and was murdered. The story said something about Rhonda's case Sherlyn didn't like, and we got it. I'd probably be the same way. And just so there's no confusion, Hanya's case is not thought to be related to Rhonda's, but it is one more added to an already long list. Both Sheila and Sherlyn tell me Rhonda and Kristen Bennett knew each other. They all did, the ones who ended up dead and the ones who disappeared. The rest of 2017 passed, then all of 2018, and now we're into 2019, and no answers. What do you think the holdup is? Or do you think that they've just given up on it at this point?
I don't know. But 3 deaths came back with no cause of death. No way. No way.
Yes, no cause of death, and I'll get to that in just a minute. Rhonda was smart, well-liked, 36 years old, a mother. She took early college classes when she was in high school, but as things go in life sometimes, things eventually took a turn.
Rhonda, she's got 5 kids, 1 granddaughter, and they loved her and needed her, and I don't know, we needed her.
After talking for a bit with Sherlyn, I finally got her permission to use her voice, and I'm really glad she agreed to do it. She clearly loved her sister, has her own theories, and is incredibly frustrated.
I think if it would have been somebody who was a respectable person in Lumberton, they would have got a lot more attention about it, and they would have been all over that case.
They, like most of the community, and us as well, have a lot of questions. Why were 2 women found dead within a few hundred feet of each other? Were they killed the same day? How were they killed? Was somebody claiming their territory? Was it a pissed-off John? Was it over drugs or something else? And why have their deaths not been ruled homicides? And now looking back and knowing what the future would be, is this a serial killer, different killers, or several people working together, or none of the above? Sherlyn told me Rhonda had been raped by a, quote, Mexican dude. That was some time before she was killed, but they don't think the Mexican dude killed her. Her family heard she'd recently had a previous run-in as well with the woman who some say was a known drug dealer, but as far as they know, the cops have not connected her. Did both Kristen and Rhonda overdose and someone just put them in a TV cabinet and a trash can afterwards? Rhonda's family certainly doesn't think so.
Even if they overdosed, nobody had to do them the way they done them. They could have called the law or the ambulance or whatever and said, hey, something's wrong with this girl, come get her. But see, I'm telling you.
They were murdered.
They were murdered, Sheila says. I asked if they thought about having Rhonda exhumed from her grave and having a second and independent autopsy done. She and Sherlyn pointed right in front of me above the TV. There sits an urn with Rhonda's cremated remains. It's maroon, her favorite color, and the wall is covered with different pictures showing her and her family in much, much happier times. There's also a memorial garden in Sheila's yard as well. So with her being cremated, another autopsy is not going to happen. Rhonda's body was pretty decomposed by the time she was found, but she did have injuries to her head. According to her autopsy, they weren't bad enough to kill her, but her sister thinks maybe in her last moments she tried to fight. It's awful for Sheila and Sherlyn when they read in the ME's report, quote, the cause of death remains uncertain. The autopsy also says there was cocaine in her system, but the ME does not know if that killed her, and she can't rule out suffocation either. So basically, there's just not much to go on.
It's like they're determined for their cases to go cold, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's just what it feels like. They don't care anymore. Well, I don't know if they ever cared.
Next time on 32 Degrees.
They were scared. They were scared Megan was going to tell on them. They had a feeling she knew.
During that interview, if you look at her and watch her, she glances off and looks back and glances off again. She had thoughts about doing that interview. And then that's why she walked away from it.
Megan Oxendine reacts on television news. A month and a half later, she's dead. And there's an attack no one seems to be talking about. I'm Russ Bowen. This episode co-produced by Kerry Goff, edited by David Hatman, web by Patrick Zarcone, graphics by Kendall McGee. 32 Degrees is a product of Nexstar Media.
Everybody I see, everybody's suspect. I wonder if you had something to do with it.
The third woman who police have discovered dead in the same neighborhood.
It drives me crazy that they won't say that they have been murdered.
What do you think the holdup is?
If you don't have big pockets around here, it's hard to get anything done.
This is 32 Degrees. When you walk up to it, you can see that the house is older. one story covered in what looks like the old asbestos siding. There's a front porch that goes halfway across the front, and the windows are boarded up with weather-worn plywood. On one side, the closest neighbor really is the railroad. The wooden slats that cover the attic window are half gone. Shingles are missing from the roof, and the yard is overgrown. Some of those same shingles and that same overgrowth are what hid Megan Oxendine from sight for however long she laid still and decomposing until a 15-year-old kid was playing basketball, followed a smell, and found her on June 3rd, 2017. Only a month and a half after she went on TV news and talked about Kristen Bennett and Rhonda Jones' deaths. Now she joined them, just more than a block away.
My fiance was sitting over in the chair across from me. I was doing my baby's hair, getting her ready for graduation. We were excited. And he gets, his phone rings and he answers the phone. And he's talking, but I never knew who he was talking to yet. And while I'm sitting there, he looks towards me and I cannot even tell y'all the look that was on his face. His eyes just, and I was like, what is it? And he was like, that was Mama. He was like, you need to get on Facebook. And I was like, what's going on? He said, Mama said that people's posting pictures everywhere of Megan, saying rest in peace. Oh my God, it was awful. I went screaming and...
So that's literally how you found out, was on social media.
Mm-hmm.
That's Taylor Oxendine, one of Megan's sisters. She met me at her other sister Sierra's house. You can hear Taylor's son in the other room playing with his toys while the two sisters sat with my producer Carrie and me at the dining room table. Was there any time before she was killed that you were worried about who she was hanging out with at all or what her situation?
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, there was people.
I was definitely scared for it down there.
Megan was only in the neighborhood because of Hurricane Matthew.
North Carolina News at 5 starts now.
All 42 schools in Robeson County have been closed for nearly 2 weeks now following Hurricane Matthew's historic flooding.
It's like living in a nightmare.
That storm brought devastating flooding that included where Megan was staying.
She was living in an area in Lumberton that was close to her job. And it got flooded in the area, and so she got pushed to that side of town.
We can't say that she was killed by the hurricane, but we can certainly say it sent her to where she'd end up dead, that East Lumberton neighborhood full of drugs and prostitution. Megan did both. Was this a new crowd of people she'd never really hung out with before?
Yeah,
You think
this is people she never knew her whole life. She just met them, and she lived with them, back and forth, anywhere, when Megan met people, they loved her. There wasn't a time she met somebody and it was bad. She always drew people to her. And that's what kind of person she was, though. She just drew so many people to her. I don't understand why she went back out there. We tried to help her so many times and tell her what could happen. We told her all the time, Megan, you're gonna get killed.
The sisters both favor Megan. I couldn't help but sit there and think about how alike they must have all been. And whatever triggered Megan to slide downward happens to a lot of people. Talking to Sierra and Taylor, I kind of felt like part of Megan was there talking to me too. Just one day after the bodies of Kristen Bennett and Rhonda Jones were found, Megan went on local television news. It was for the same TV station I work for now, WNCN. Here's the reporter at the time, Nate Rogers, and Megan.
Neighbors say detectives pulled the second body from a trash bin.
I don't comprehend with stuff like this too good. I don't understand how somebody could do somebody's child, mother, niece like that.
Friends and various posts from relatives on social media identify one of the victims as Rhonda Jones, a mother with 5 children. Megan Oxendine lives in the area and says Jones was a sweet and good person.
I ain't never seen her act out or nothing. She's just quiet. She didn't really mess with too many people.
Even though she said nothing about a possible killer or motive, Megan's family thinks that may have been the beginning of the end for her.
They seen Megan talking. Oh, you best believe the killer was watching that. They seen that.
He could have been standing across the street.
They were scared. They were scared Megan was going to tell on them. They had a feeling she knew.
During that interview, if you look at her and watch her, she glances off and looks back and glances off again. She had thoughts about doing that interview.
Yeah, as if they were watching her. As if they were watching her.
And a few weeks after that, she was attacked from behind.
She was busted up. They had busted her head. She was bleeding. You know, they had hurt her. And, you know, I said, what's going on? Megan was like, she was walking down the alley down there in the dark. And 4 to 5 head jumps on her from behind. Megan says she never knew who they were, whether it was males or females. And I was lost. She lost me. I'm like, you know. So as they jumped her, they grabbed her hair and was cutting her hair. So she gets away from them. Stays at my mom's that night. So she was bleeding. She was hurt. And I was like, Megan, go to the hospital. She didn't want to go,
Well, I guess what I want to do, I'm going to sit. Let's see, I bet I'm sitting right like that. All right.
I also talked to Megan's mom, Sheila, about that incident.
Like I said, she was just all hysterical.
She remembers her coming to her mobile home, beaten and scared.
And I was like, Megan, you need to calm down. We need to call the law. She didn't want to call the law.
Her family begged her to let them get her medical help. The police came. They talked to everyone, including Megan. Megan agreed to go get checked out, but before the police car she was in even got on the road, she took off.
She opened the door, jumped out, and ran. And she ran this way, back here. And she got back there and jumped that canal, and these dogs back there will rip you apart. And she knew that.
Eventually, she did come back to her mom's. Megan told her she just wanted to sleep and to please not call the cops. So she slept on the couch, was there when her mother got up and went to work. Then at some point, she left. It was the last time Sheila saw her daughter. Megan did call her mom a few times, though, on the phone. She called to check on Ava. Ava is Megan's daughter. She was 6 at the time her mom died. Ava was also there when we interviewed her grandmother, who is now raising her. She'd sit in the room, leave a bit, come back. I wondered just how much all of this she really understood.
I want to know what happened to Megan. I want the truth of what happened to Megan. That way when she gets older, and she will ask me what happened to her mother, that I can tell her what happened to her.
At some point, the calls from Megan stopped. Then, as you heard earlier, her sister Taylor got word people were posting on Facebook, "Megan, rest in peace." Her body was found behind an empty boarded house on 8th Street by a kid playing basketball who followed the smell. Since then, it's never been ruled a homicide or a murder. So to try and figure out why, we started with everything we could get from the state medical examiner. To follow the way it really works, there are typically 3 reports that come from the medical examiner. First, there's what's called a report of investigation. After that comes the official autopsy, and then there's a 3rd report with any toxicology results. In other words, it will say what was in someone's system when they died. In the initial ME report, the investigative one, it says Megan's body was partially concealed by a cedar tree covered with tree branches and shingles. Megan's death was suspicious because 2 other adult females were recently found in the same area. Their causes of death were also uncertain. Those 2 other deceased females were Kristen and Rhonda. And that's interesting because to this day, the police have not said the deaths are connected.
911, what's the location of your emergency?
Megan was only about 500 to 600 feet from where the other 2 bodies were found, and she was also found naked.
I need to get a sheriff. I need to get the police out here at 6 on 8th Street.
This is the 911 call from that day.
It's on my 20th, I'm another dead body.
The copy we were given from the Lumberton Police Department is somewhat redacted. They also altered the voice of the caller to protect their identity. That's why the recording sounds the way it does.
Is it inside of a residence? Is it in a trash can? Is it in the yard? Where is it located at? It's in the yard. It's in the yard in the bushes. Is it in the front yard or the backyard? It's in the backyard.
We had to wait 3 days till we could find out whether it was her or not. 3 whole days. Those was the longest 3 days of my life.
Just like Kristen and Rhonda, in the next report, the actual autopsy, Megan's cause of death came out undetermined. There was no significant physical injury, but there is mention of what they call subtle findings of putative asphyxial insult. So suffocation is possible, but not evident at all. In the first episode, I told you that Rhonda's autopsy said suffocation couldn't be ruled out either. Megan's body was just too decomposed to know for sure. There were indications of past drug use, but no way to be certain that had anything to do with her death. Again, like Rhonda and Kristen, some questioned whether Megan overdosed and then someone hit her body. Her family, like Rhonda's, does not believe that at all. There's no doubt in their mind all 3 were killed. Taylor, Sierra, and their mother say waiting on a positive ID that it was indeed Megan was agony.
I seen the car park up there at the front of the house, and I seen them when they got out, and I knew.
What was that like for you?
Just devastating. Just devastating. I knew life wouldn't be the same, as we knew it again. And it's all about Ava.
And Sheila still thinks about what Megan knew after the first 2 women were found, and whatever that was, she took to her grave with her.
She would call a couple times, afterwards. And it was just like after that, she was like scared and nervous. Especially every time she'd come around me. And Megan never was that tight to be, especially if I'd asked her something about it. Well, Megan, do you know anything? Or, and she'd start to tell you little things, and she would stop, or I'd be like, what do you mean, Megan? I mean, things like that. But yeah, she was very, scared.
Do you think she was stopping because she was afraid of saying too much?
Yeah. Yeah. I thought exactly that. That's why she could never, really tell us no more than she did.
The sisters say when Megan was attacked in the weeks before she died from behind, someone cut a chunk of her hair. And while they say they never saw her body, those who did told them her hair was cut even more.
The fact that her hair was cut doesn't sound like something that an angry man would do. Sounds like a jealous female.
Next time on 32 Degrees.
I just feel like I'm not sure she's living. That's what I feel like. That she may have either been killed or she died.
It's not long after Kristen, Rhonda, and Megan are found dead that 2 more women in that same area go missing as well. They haven't been heard from or seen since. And it takes a new sheriff in town to finally get law enforcement to talk.
But somewhere in this whole thing, somebody will speak up. Somebody's going to slip up.
For pictures and to see the autopsy reports that I've been talking about, go to 32degreespodcast.net. That's the number 32, then degrees podcast spelled out, .net. Now, some of the details are sensitive and graphic, so just be aware of that before you head there. I'm Russ Bowen. This episode co-produced by Kerry Goff, edited by David Hatman, web by Patrick Zarcone, and graphics by Kendall Dennis. 32 Degrees is a product of Nexstar Media.